Alright, 2-4. Sealer Enterprise with the yellow LU-001 exothermic cutting tool. Carry cable with warning. Do not attempt with the speed with the cutting with the screening with the fire with the infernal deep inside with the metal situation can lead to an explosion. Warning, the carry cable will not cut rock with the key can concrete either above or below the water. If you attempt to do so with the crate with the explosion cause with a serious injury and death. The equipment should not be used with non-fierce melt with underwater that can get oxide and have been melted with the and show when they can result with a violent explosion which can be fatal. Similar exothermic cutting, the method of Sealer Enterprise with the LU-001 exothermic cutting tool with the carry cable. Unlike rigid electrode, but the consumable electrode with long flexible spiral cable to the center of the strand with the pulled out along with the oxygen path of the cable. It's just a 6 bond with a high tension steel with a wire with a cord lifted the cable to the surface with a rough ultraviolet inhibitor, which with encased with the plastic sheath facilitate the connecting the control panel with a threaded female fitting with the current pillar to one end of each of the length of the cable. The advantage for the disadvantage for the carry cable, the advantage for the carry cable are as follows. There's less training skill required with the applicable to metal thickness has no longer burn time. Their ability to has a long burn time. The ability to cut and hard to reach spots with a frequent electrode change, but there is no electrical hard hazard after ignition. Electrical circuit with the only ignition with the thermic cable that can be cut the surface of all the surfaces as well as underwater. The lightweight, only one gas oxygen. Neither disadvantage the carry cable is followed. It requires more oxygen. Will not cut concrete, rock, or non-ferrous metal. Learns to use the carrier cable to very simple, familiar off the dive at the top side of the support group with the equipment operating procedure. The team should follow with the setup with the described below with the before counting with the surface the use of the piece of the mile seal to play with the practice material with the oxygen pressure with the 200 psi. Turn the hook valve on the on position close with the knife switch. Try with the practice metal with the type of the carry cable. The carry cable the cable should be ignite immediately. Lift over the knife switch or the opposite ignite takes place. Proceed to cut the metal starting at the edge. Once in the water, the driver will become accustomed to the feel, sound, and use of the carry cable. 242. The material that you require for the carry cable cutting. The Sealer Enterprise the LU-001 exothermic cutting tool carry cable is supplied with a surface control panel with the figure 2A, with which include the oxygen regulator on-off vent valve flow with the oxygen knife with the switch, electronical oxygen connection, oxygen batteries, ground cable do not include the following equipment is required: one control panel, 1 3-cylinder, 10-foot high-pressure oxygen manifold, and 3 full 200 cubic foot oxygen cylinders, 100, 200, 350 foot lead, 1 extension, 1 insulation sleeve, 1 6x4 by 6x4 in British standard pipe with double male adapter, 1 6x4 by 3x2 double male adapter with a length of 6x9 by 12 carry cable, the 2-thresh 12 volt 20 amp hour battery welding machine cable to supplying 400 amps to 880 volts. 1 pair of heavy-duty wire cutters. Also, they show the amp meter, the oxygen regulator for the knife switch, and the negative input, negative output. Negative amp, negative in and out, the on and off, the bank, cutting the low pressure oxygen cut, and the bank high pressure oxygen cut in. Or the carry cable is manufactured with a 3-size 50-foot length with a 9mm, 100-foot with a length with a 12mm cutting heavy plate with a wire shackle with a 50-foot length with a 6mm cutting thinner plate with a wire and shackle with a cable that's cutting the electrode connected with the control panel with a V with the extension lead with the supply with both power and oxygen with the cable. The control panel with connected with the 3 oxygen silver with the 10-foot high pressure with the manifold, the power supply with the extension lead with the negative the ampere with the low pressure for the oxygen and the supply with the control panel for figure 2.9. While the oxygen flowing through the cable ignite with the close of the knife switch, the oxygen from the tip of the striker plate with the striker plate with the negative with the positive side with the parallel batteries welding machine. The action flow with directly with the cable through the three-way hook valve with the control panel. Once ignited with the knife switch is open with the cut off the power of the carry cable will continue with the burn with the oxygen cut off the proper completely consumed. The burning cable can be stopped with turning the hook valve to the off position will stop the flow of the oxygen. Burn cable can be stopped with almost immediately with turning the hook valve to the vent position. The vent oxygen to the atmosphere to line with the water to flow. Flood the cable with extension extinguish the flame with this can also be done in the emergency situation as flood with the water with the cause of difficulties when attempting to relight with the cable underwater. 243 equipment setup. The following procedure should be followed with the same with the carry cable equipment and caution. Very important with the ignition not occur with the oxygen pressure too low. To do so will cover the burning and inside of itself with the full pressure applied with the flame will burn and out one side and the length of the cable in series below hole that can cause diver injury. Connect all 3 oxygen cylinders together with a 10-foot high pressure manifold. Check with the high pressure gauge with the cylinder pressure to turn the valve marked on off then to the off position. Turn off the regulator. Connect the high pressure manifold fitting the high pressure oxygen input on the control panel. So for the low pressure oxygen, the high pressure oxygen control panel, the negative amp, the negative output, and the low pressure oxygen out, the high pressure oxygen knife switch, 12 bolt series, and the HPM manifold for the 3 oxygen cubic feet, 220 foot cubic feet insulated insulating sleeve of the carry cable doesn't work. Cutting length of 100, 200 foot, 250 foot extension for the control panel fitting to the mark of the low pressure cutting to oxygen cut. Open the knife switch. Connect the length of the 200, 200, 200 foot, 50 foot electrode lead for the control panel fitting to the mark of the negative amps out. Replace the two fresh 12 volt batteries to leave 200 amperes over the non-conductive surround surface wooden plate. Rubber mats, etc. Connect with the batteries, and see with the connect with the negative side of the battery, fitting with the negative amps in and on the control panel. Connect with the positive side of the batteries with a suitable length of the wire opposite of the end for the connect with the strike plate with the ground. Caution: ensure the red insulating sleeve is correctly reinstalled after replacing the carrier cable. The 244 carrier cable preparation. Carrier cable that comes with the manufacturer. Individual coils are tightly wound, but should be open with the inspection for the cuts and plastic cutting. Following procedure should be followed with the recoil of the carrier cable. The large loops to prevent kinking. The connect with the cable. The extension leads with the appropriate reducer. The blowdown with the hose with the oxygen approximately 20 seconds with a slightly red plastic insulating sleeve with the carrier cable until the joint between the cable the extension lead with it completely covered. The equipment is now ready for the cutting. 245 cutting underwater. After the striker plate is secured with the water work side with the cable should be pressure out of the diver. The cable is taken down with a sufficient oxygen flow with the exclude the water with the enter with the bore with the gas pressure need only to increase the hydrostatic pressure. Upon reaching the work site with the diver, the board ready should be called with the wait for the gas to pressure for the increase the delay with approximately 20 seconds necessary before applying with the cutting of the gas with the pressure. Close with the knife switch to allow the time for the oxygen pressure to build up with the full length of the cable. The following procedure should be followed. The tender will increase the oxygen supply with the proper over the pressure for the C-table 26 for the proper upper over the bottom pressure formula. The diver called with the switch on with the increase of the amount of the bubbles observed with the emerging in the cable. The tender phone call to call with the switch and the super respond with the switch on. The diver switch to the touch of the tip of the cable. The striker blade with the ammeter will give the reading. The diver attempt with the ignition, then will fall back with the zero when the ignition is achieved. Once it's obvious the ignition has been successful, the diver announced the eye of ignition. The tender phone call will open the bat knife switch and isolating the electrical circuit. Typical carrier cable burns about 2 feet per minute with the selection of the cable side, depending on the thickness of the metal being cut. With the table 2.7 and table 2.8 lift the type of the oxygen consumption ratio. So the 2.4.6 with the cutting technique. To begin with cutting the torch ignited with the carrier cable of material with the cut with the material with the insulating being cut oxidized burn away. The holding and cutting with about 90-degree perpendicular with the keeping the tip of the constant contact with the material being cut, with the keeping the tip of the moving and cut and keep the hands at least 6 inches away up from the flame. Caution: do not force the poke with the cable of the material being cut, since this will cause blowback. Cutting with the thin metals. When cutting thin sheet, the steel plate, the wire rope with the routine light work with the 6mm, 9mm carrier cable should be used. A brush motion, several motions, eliminating the metal from the cut. 248 cutting thick metals. When cutting thicker materials, the 2.5 to 2.5 inches or greater, use the 12-inch millimeter cable with the brushing motion to allow the metal surrounding with the cut cool enough to prevent the molten pool. The thick steel with the proper shafting should be cut with the outside with the working around in the circle with the boy drawn with the carrier cable for a few seconds to allow the water enter for the cut. Brushing stroke again in the direction intended for the cut the shirt should be used. Alright, to the action regulator setting for the carrier cable, the 6mm, there's a 230 psi, 250 300 psi depth of heat and salt water, plus 250 psi of the oxygen OP1. 9mm, it's 36,000 an inch cable. The depth of heat and salt water plus the 300 to 340 psi equals the OB1. 12mm, 48,000 an inch, or the depth and seat water plus 340 to 380 psi equals OB1 pressure formula. Alright, carrier cable does not recommend for the deeper than 300 feet salt water. Cable on size 6mm up to 1 inch metal, 9mm, 1 to 2.5 inch metal thickness. 12 millimeter was over to 2.5 inches metal cutness. Carrier cable oxygen cable consumption rates. Cable millimeter 2.1 feet per minute, 3.9 oxygen per psi per minute. 36,000 inch. 9mm, 2.2 feet per minute consumed, and 35.5 oxygen consumed psi per minute. 12 millimeter, 2.4 cubic feet per minute consumed cable, and oxygen 40.6 psi per minute. Alright, 249, relighting the cable underwater. After calling the gas off, the diver should continue to run over the cable again for the work preventing with the molten plastic for the coating, the forming the insulation over the inner wire core with the separate necessary for the ensure for the reignition. The operation required with the reignition of the carrier cable for more than 6 of the third time considerable that should be given to you for the DC welding machine due to limitations of the battery. 214, emergency off safety procedure with the diver to indicate the emergency of the off the action with the call for the emergency off the setting of the one hand pull signal of the umbilical or the equipment tender with the tender turn of the hook valve with the vent position of the cable will flow, and the flame will stop immediately. 2.4.11, the loss of the communication, the loss of communication, the operation must be until the cutting operation must be stopped until the communication can be restored. Diving supervisor should be emerged for the emergency off the procedure to deal with the loss of the communication. 2.4.12, the equipment attendant for the phone talker may be assigned with the task for the equipment attendant, but the attendant will not close the circuit unless specifically directed to do so by the diver. When the director attendant will confirm with each chain for the diver, the equipment attendant will ensure that the diver has proxy oxygen with the over bottom pressure for the corners of the table. 2.6, the must remain with the reach of the control panel at all times. 2.4.13, electrical precaution. The employment of the specified with the design 10-foot high-pressure manifold joining the oxygen cylinder in the panel. Note not to be substituted with electrical insulator with the manifold designed to prevent the return of the control current from the traveling up the steel braided hose. Due to the oxygen cylinder, electrical connection should be tied with an insulator with the red plastic sleeve or other non-conductive material with the rubber tape, with the heat shrinking tape, tubing, etc. And 2.4.14, preventive post-dive maintenance. Post-dive maintenance for the carry cable is quite simple. The following procedure were recommended. Rinse the equipment that has been exposed with the salt water with fresh water. Blow remaining moisture out over the unused portion of the cable and dry thoroughly. Return the equipment to the stowage in an oil-free environment. 2.5, shielded metal arc welding.